So on Friday's Ask the Devs, I think I heard something that sounds like a downgrade. Okay. So first I'm going to show you something a developer for the engineering system said, I think, 7 months ago. Let's listen to 20 seconds of what he's saying.
Your job as the engineer is also understanding the items. And that means you have to understand the different states an item can be in. States are basically stages for the items inside your ship, where each item has its individual stages or states it can be in, where, for example, you can have items that have a boot up phase. Then they have, that is followed by an ignition phase, where you have to ignite something so that it is going into the idle state, where it is basically.
Okay, so he talks about several minutes about different states, and it's a really complex system, and it's not super exciting when I heard it. I was like, yeah, that sounds great. However, then on Friday's Ask the Devs, sounds a lot like downgrade to me. Okay, first they read a question from players.
Next question is about repair. Are mini games planned to fix things, or is it just nothing but magic beams over and over and over again?
So there were plans for having more bespoke repair, but that will not be part of the initial release. We will just go for the simple solution first, and then we will observe how that actually is perceived by the community.
Okay, so the first they're going to check if players are okay with beams, and then they're going to do nothing about it, unless players really ask for more. So that's the point of a video here, is to get people to ask for more right now, before they set it in stone to just make it a beam. Because all indications currently are that it's going to be just a beam. Okay, so let's go to CitizenCon presentation.
And yeah, no one being seated in the turrets. So yeah, our goal was basically to flee the Gladius.
You know, so you got one player using a beam, the second player coming in. That's supposedly multi-crew gameplay. And here's my concern about engineering gameplay. Like the party showed off when the UI looks great, but my guess is they're probably going to do like this, like they did with other minigames before. They're going to put all the complexity on a UI screen, and anything that's visible in the game vaults, they're going to avoid as much as they can any good animations. So you probably, as an engineer, you're going to end up just running around painting everything in your ship with a repair beam if it's glowing a certain color. Okay, then there's two more statements which I find really concerning. First over here.
Like our credo, or it started to be our credo, which is like we really want to have meaningful gameplay rather than complex gameplay for the complexity's sakes.
Okay, which directly contradicts what the developers say in Squadron 42. Let's listen to what Richard Tyra has to say about complexity.
An experience that we can be really proud of. One specific area that I'm excited to dive in is the feeling of the player interacting with the world around them.
Patching you in.
As it's a core component of Squadron and really grounds the world that you inhabit. We've made sure that any interaction in the environment is physically represented by a character animation.
Here's the subtitle, any interaction in the environment. If you watch the Squadron 42 trailer completely, I think there's only one scene where they're actually using a magic beam. Everything else is characters perfectly animated with their hands doing things. And then another concerning statement by Jared.
Real world, that's not fun. It's not going to play video games to be fun. There's always this balance. I think there's this misnomer that everything has to be uber realistic, and I'm like, no, it has to be evocative of realistic. It has to have a sense of realism and stuff whenever possible. But you always got to bring it back to fun, and again, not dragging things down with unnecessary chores.
Okay, I think that's a pretty bad thing to say for a game like that, because what they did with most minigames, they brought it from realism, which they advertised, back to beams. And I think it's just an excuse for all the animators working on Squadron 42 and not having any animators, or any animators at all, working on Star Citizen. And I think there's one more statement. How is it?
And if there is the necessity to actually make it more complex or more bespoke per item, then sure, we will think about that. But for now, it is really a very simple repair mechanic for the items, and then we will see. Because what we don't want to do is like you need to read a handbook to actually understand like, okay, what item do I actually need? What resistor do I need? Like what capacitor do I need? That doesn't make sense that we have to make people study our game to actually be able to play it. So
and if you look at the animation over here, let's look at it in slow motion again. Okay, let me go slow motion, turn off the sound. Pay attention to the camera movement and the small, precise camera jerks in certain points during the animation, and the finger positions. Because he's grabbing it, pushing it out. Now pay attention to the hand behind the thing when it's turning. Notice here? Each finger is hand posed by itself down to the last bone. See here, slightly inward bent. This finger is slightly more tilted that direction. This one a bit more, like a human hand should be. And you won't find a single animation in all of Star Citizen that's so perfectly posed when it's holding an item or a gun or anything. And you won't find a single animation that is as bad as in Star Citizen in Squadron 42 trailers. Which means they're striving for absolute perfection and realism in animations in Squadron 42. However, they're completely avoiding that quality in Star Citizen. And I think, why would you avoid that? Because if Squadron 42 is feature complete, then all the animators that do that quality work, they could just go over to Star Citizen and give every single engineering task its own complex animation system. So for example, what they could do, instead of this over here, for example, let's say you have to tune some component. Then there should be an animation where you pull out a part of it. Let's say there's like a dial you can flip left or right, and you can press A or D, and then the hand flips it one more notch in one direction, fully animated. And then you stick it back into it. So if you agree with the message in my video, ask the developers to add more bespoke animations into engineering gameplay. Because in 6 or 7 months, it's going to be too late, because then everything will be set in stone. And once they turn Tier 0 into Beam gameplay, they never turn it into something else later.